What if a handful of small copper coins, hidden away in a forgotten jar or an old family album, could tell the story of a nation in transition, while also holding details that most casual observers completely overlook? The Lincoln Wheat penny is perhaps the most universally recognized and nostalgically beloved coin in American history. Introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the reverse design featuring two simple stalks of durum wheat framing the denomination became a symbol of everyday American commerce for half a century. While millions of these coins passed through the hands of generations, buying everything from wartime rations to daily newspapers, the vast majority were worn down, darkened by the elements, and eventually lost to history. Yet, experienced collectors know that not all wheat pennies are created equal. Among the billions struck, certain years combined with exceptional preservation, specific manufacturing variations, and authenticated mint errors can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a highly sought-after numismatic treasure. Today, we are taking an extensive microscopic look at four specific years of the Lincoln Wheat Penny: 1941, 1945, 1948, and the 1951 D. We will uncover the historical circumstances that shape their production, the precise technical specifications that authenticate them, the subtle grading nuances that separate common circulated examples from elite registry set survivors, and the remarkable auction records that prove why serious numismatists continue to study these small copper artifacts with unwavering dedication. 1941. Wheat Penny. The story of the 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny begins during one of the most pivotal and anxious years in modern history. As the world became increasingly engulfed in the flames of the Second World War, the United States stood on the precipice of a conflict that would forever alter the trajectory of the nation. The American economy was rapidly shifting gears, moving away from the lingering shadows of the Great Depression and accelerating into a massive industrial buildup. Factories were converting to wartime production, and the demand for everyday circulating coinage surged as employment reached unprecedented levels. The United States mint facilities were operating at maximum capacity to ensure that the arteries of commerce remained fully supplied with small change. The 1941 wheat penny, struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, was produced in staggering quantities to meet this demand. It represents the final year of production before the United States officially entered the war following the events of December, making it a poignant historical marker for collectors who view numismatics as a tangible connection to the past. When examining the physical specifications of the 1941 wheat penny, collectors immediately verify that it adheres to the traditional bronze composition that had defined the series since its inception. The plancher is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving the coin a standard weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. The edges are completely plain, lacking the reading found on higher denominations. The obverse features the iconic left-facing portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, originally sculpted by Victor David Brenner, with the word "Liberty" to the left, the date 1941 to the right, and the motto "In God We Trust" arching along the top rim. The reverse proudly displays the two stylized wheat stalks enclosing the words of 1 cent and United States of America, with the Latin motto "E pluribus unum" resting at the top. Because the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins, rarity is never determined simply by identifying the date. Instead, the true hunt involves discovering examples that have remarkably escaped the ravages of circulation. The evaluation of a 1941 wheat penny rests heavily on the internationally recognized Sheldon grading scale, which categorizes coins from a basal state of 1 up to a theoretically flawless 70. For modern collectors, the distinction between a common circulated piece and a valuable condition rarity often comes down to microscopic details in the preservation of original mint color. Copper is a highly reactive metal, meaning that as soon as a penny leaves the mint, it begins interacting with oxygen, moisture, and the oils from human skin. Grading services classify copper coins into three distinct color categories: brown, red-brown, and full red. A 1941 wheat penny that circulated freely will almost certainly possess a dark chocolate brown coloration, smooth details in Lincoln's hair and jawline, and flattened lines within the wheat stalks on the reverse. These circulated examples, while historically charming, generally carry very modest premiums and are considered foundational pieces for beginning collectors. However, the numismatic market shifts dramatically when presented with a mint state example that retains its original, vibrant, full red mint luster. A certified mint state 67 full red 1941. Wheat penny is an exceptionally difficult coin to locate. Finding one requires a coin to have been carefully preserved in a bankroll or mint bag, untouched by human hands and shielded from environmental contaminants for more than 8 decades. These elite survivors display blinding cartwheel luster, where the light rolls across the surface uninterrupted by contact marks, scratches, or carbon spots. The strike must be fully detailed, with every lock of Lincoln's hair and every individual grain on the wheat stalks sharply defined. When advanced collectors compete for these top-tier registry quality specimens, the financial outcomes can be astonishing. Authenticated, flawless examples have realized values ranging from several $100s to well over $1,000, depending on the current market demand, the assigned grade, and the visual appeal of the specific coin. But condition is not the only factor that commands attention. The 1941 production run is also known for genuine manufacturing anomalies. Specialists meticulously examine the obverse of the 1941 wheat penny under high magnification, searching for evidence of doubled dies. A doubled die occurs when the coin blank is struck by a die that received a misaligned secondary impression during its creation at the mint, resulting in overlapping or duplicated design elements. On the 1941 obverse, collectors look closely at the word Liberty and the date for signs of clear, distinct separation in the lettering and numerals. A strongly authenticated double die obverse can significantly elevate the value of the coin, transforming it from a standard strike into a recognized and documented variety. Other highly sought-after errors include broad strikes, where the retaining collar fails to hold the metal during the strike, resulting in an expanded, flattened coin, and off-center strikes, where the blank was not properly fed into the press. Experienced numismatists caution that mechanical doubling, a common and valueless occurrence caused by a loose die shifting during the strike, should never be confused with a true double die. For this reason, professional authentication by trusted third-party grading services remains an essential step before assigning any significant monetary value to a suspected error coin. 1945 wheat penny. Moving forward in the timeline, the 1945 wheat penny arrives at the triumphant yet exhausted conclusion of the Second World War. By 1945, the global landscape had been fundamentally reshaped, and the United States was transitioning from total war mobilization back toward a peacetime economy. The American coinage system had endured unprecedented material shortages during the conflict, leading to temporary but massive alterations in how daily money was manufactured. To understand the profound significance of the 1945 wheat penny, one must look at what preceded it. In 1943, the severe need for copper in the manufacturing of ammunition and military communications wire forced the United States Mint to strike pennies out of zinc-coated steel. By 1944 and continuing through 1945, the Mint implemented another emergency measure. Rather than returning to the pre-war bronze alloy, the government authorized the use of salvaged brass artillery shell casings retrieved from military training facilities and battlefields. The 1945 wheat penny, struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, represents the second and final year of this historic shell casing bronze composition. The metallic makeup of this coin is distinctly different from the standard bronze of 1941. It consists of 95% copper and 5% zinc, entirely omitting the small amount of colored tin that was traditionally included to help the metal flow properly during the striking process. Despite this subtle chemical change, the physical specifications remain strictly identical to earlier years: a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. This specific metallurgical composition gives the 1945 wheat penny a slightly different visual characteristic when found in uncirculated condition. The absence of tin made the alloy marginally harder, which sometimes impacted the striking quality, and the resulting mint luster often exhibits a slightly more yellow or brassy tone compared to the deep reddish-orange of the traditional bronze issues. Because billions of 1945 wheat pennies were struck across the mint system to support the booming post-war economy, the absolute scarcity of the date is essentially zero. You can still occasionally find them mixed into jars of old change. Therefore, the dividing line between ordinary pocket change and a valuable collectible rests entirely upon the preservation of the coin and the sharpness of the strike. Due to the slightly tougher shell casing alloy, many 1945 pennies emerged from the coining presses with soft details. The central high points, particularly the cheek and jaw of Lincoln on the obverse, and the parallel lines at the tops of the wheat ears on the reverse, frequently appear mushy or indistinct, even on coins that never entered circulation. A fully struck 1945 wheat penny is a true condition rarity. Collectors spend countless hours searching for examples that combine the historical intrigue of the shell casing composition with flawlessly sharp design details. When evaluating these coins, third-party grading services place immense importance on surface preservation and color. Like all copper coins, the 1945 wheat penny is highly susceptible to environmental damage. Fingerprints left by bank tellers in the 1940s can slowly etch themselves into the metal over decades, leaving permanent dark marks that destroy a coin's eye appeal. Carbon spots, tiny black dots that form when microscopic droplets of moisture react with the copper, are also heavily penalized. A certified Mint State 67 or Mint State 68 full red 1945 wheat penny is a breathtaking object. These ultra-high-grade examples are virtually non-existent in the wild and only survive because they were meticulously preserved by forward-thinking collectors immediately upon release. When an immaculate, fully struck, flawless full red example appears at a major auction, competitive bidding among registry set collectors can drive the price well into the thousands of dollars. These extraordinary financial results reflect the near impossibility of finding a mass-produced, utility-grade wartime coin in absolute perfection. In addition to condition rarities, the 1945 wheat penny offers an exciting landscape for era collectors. High-speed, high-volume production invariably leads to spectacular mechanical failures. Collectors actively hunt for clipped planchets, which occur when the coin blanking press accidentally overlaps a previously punched hole in the metal strip, resulting in a coin with a distinct crescent-shaped piece missing from the edge. Another fascinating error type occasionally found on the 1945 issue is the struck-through error, where a foreign object, such as a piece of wire, heavy grease, or a fragment of cloth, falls onto the die just as the coin is being struck, leaving a unique permanent indentation on the surface. While the Philadelphia issues do not have mint marks to be repunched, the sheer volume of production means that die cracks, die chips, and retained cuds, which occur when a piece of the hardened steel die breaks off during striking, are widely collected and documented. However, as with all rare coins, novice collectors must exercise extreme caution. Unscrupulous individuals frequently attempt to mimic these errors by applying chemical treatments, using tools to alter the coin's surface, or artificially polishing circulated coins to simulate mint luster. Genuine, authenticated errors remain the only safe avenue for serious numismatic investment. 1948 wheat penny. The 1948 wheat penny ushers us into a completely different era of the American experience. The dust of the Second World War had settled. Millions of soldiers had returned home, and the United States was experiencing an unprecedented economic and demographic explosion known as the post-war boom. The construction of sprawling suburbs, the rise of consumer culture, and a rapidly expanding population required a massive, constant infusion of circulating coinage. The United States Mint was pushed to its limits, striking coins around the clock to ensure that banks and retail businesses had enough small change to facilitate daily transactions. By 1948, the emergency wartime measures had been entirely abandoned. The mint had officially returned to the classic pre-war French bronze composition, reinstating the exact mixture of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This return to the standard alloy meant that the 1948 wheat penny once again possessed the softer striking characteristics and the deep, rich copper-red luster that had made the series so visually appealing prior to the war. Struck in Philadelphia and bearing no mint mark, the 1948 wheat penny represents a return to absolute normalcy in the United States coinage system. The technical specifications remain locked at a weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Because the mintages during these post-war years were astronomical, reaching well into the hundreds of millions for the Philadelphia facility alone, the baseline value of a circulated 1948 wheat penny is firmly tied to its copper content and its modest historical premium. Coins that grade good, fine, or even about uncirculated are abundant, easily obtainable, and serve as excellent educational tools for young collectors learning how to grade circulated copper. These coins tell a story of hard use, passing through vending machines, cash registers, and the pockets of a generation building a new American landscape. Yet it is precisely this heavy usage that makes finding a flawlessly preserved example an incredibly difficult and rewarding endeavor. In the upper echelons of the numismatic marketplace, the 1948 wheat penny is judged strictly on the perfection of its preservation. Because the alloy had returned to the traditional bronze, strike quality is generally stronger than the wartime shell casing issues, meaning that a soft strike is viewed as a significant detriment rather than an unavoidable characteristic. Registry set collectors demand nothing less than crisp, sharp definition on the highest points of Lincoln's cheekbone and the very tips of the wheat stalks. The true battleground for value, however, lies in the surface conditions. Copper minted in the late 1940s was frequently thrown into large canvas bags for transport to banks, where the coins rubbed aggressively against one another, creating thousands of microscopic contact marks known as bag marks. A coin that managed to survive this brutal transportation process without suffering a single distracting hit across the focal areas of Lincoln's portrait is an extreme rarity. When grading services evaluate a 1948 wheat penny for the highest possible designations, they look for uninterrupted blazing red luster that is not oxidized or muted over time. A certified mint State 67 full red coin represents the pinnacle of survival, representing perhaps 1 in a million coins produced that year. For these elite top population examples, auction results can escalate rapidly, frequently crossing the $1,000 threshold when highly motivated buyers compete for the finest known specimens. It is crucial to understand that these dramatic valuations do not apply to a shiny penny that has been improperly cleaned or polished. Unfortunately, many well-intentioned individuals attempt to restore the shine to dark, circulated pennies using harsh chemical dips, baking soda pastes, or abrasive cloths. This practice instantly and permanently destroys the coin's numismatic value. Under the magnification used by professional graders, the cleaned coin exhibits microscopic hairlines in an unnatural, stripped appearance that completely disqualifies it from receiving a numeric grade. True value relies entirely on natural, unaltered, original surfaces. The 1948 wheat penny is also heavily scrutinized by specialists searching for die varieties, particularly doubled dies. While not as famous as some of the massive, highly publicized doubling found in other years, minor double die obverse and reverse varieties do exist for the 1948 Philadelphia issue. Collectors meticulously examine the date, the word liberty, and the motto E pluribus unum for signs of extra thickness or faint secondary images that indicate the die was improperly manufactured. Additionally, the massive production requirements of the late 1940s meant that dies were often kept in service long past their optimal lifespan. This led to a high frequency of late die state coins, which exhibit a characteristic known as die wear or die flow lines. As the hardened steel die strikes hundreds of thousands of blanks, the metal fatigue causes the details to slowly wash out, and the fields of the coin begin to look rippled or wavy. While late die state coins are generally not considered valuable errors, they are a fascinating area of study for numismatists seeking to understand the mechanical realities of the minting process during the post-war economic boom. 1951 D wheat penny. As we move into the early 1950s, the 1951 D-Wheat penny offers a compelling glimpse into a nation once again navigating international conflict. The United States was deeply entrenched in the Korean War, an era defined by geopolitical anxiety, the looming threat of the Cold War, and a rapid expansion of the military-industrial complex. Despite these global tensions, the domestic economy continued to roar forward, and the demand for circulating coinage remained relentlessly high. The 1951 D-Wheat penny shifts our focus from the massive operations in Philadelphia to the historic United States Mint facility located in Denver, Colorado. Identifying this coin is immediately straightforward. Collectors look closely below the date on the obverse to find the small, distinct D mint mark, which signifies its origins in the Mile High City. The Denver Mint had established a strong reputation for producing high-quality strikes, often surpassing the quality control seen at other branch mints. The 1951 D-Wheat penny maintains the classic pre-war bronze composition, consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, with a standard weight of 3.11 grams and a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Because the Denver Mint struck nearly 1/3 billion of these pennies in 1951, the issue is considered extremely common in absolute numbers. Anyone sorting through a large accumulation of old wheat pennies is highly likely to encounter several heavily worn, chocolate brown examples bearing the 1951 date and the D mint mark. These circulated specimens are affordable, accessible, and form the backbone of many entry-level collections. However, experienced numismatists never judge a coin's potential solely by its mintage figures. The sheer volume of coins produced in Denver that year means that exceptional, flawless survivors are statistically buried within an ocean of mediocrity. When evaluating an uncirculated 1951 D-Wheat penny, strike quality becomes a primary focus. While Denver was known for strong strikes, the heavy production demands required to supply the western half of the United States occasionally led to quality control slipping. Some dies were spaced slightly too far apart, resulting in weak strikes where the details of Lincoln's hair or the lines in the wheat ears appear shallow and incomplete, even on coins with blazing mint luster. Therefore, a fully struck, sharply defined 1951 D penny is the first hurdle a coin must clear to be considered for a premium grade. The second and far more difficult hurdle is surface preservation. The copper-tin zinc alloy is notorious for developing small, dark carbon spots when exposed to even the slightest amount of atmospheric moisture. A coin that has remained entirely free of spots, discoloration, and heavy bag marks for over 7 decades is a true anomaly. For registry set collectors, the ultimate goal is acquiring a certified Mint State 67 or Mint State 67 plus full red example. These magnificent coins display an intense, fiery orange-red brilliance that looks exactly as it did the moment it fell from the coining press in Denver. Because such flawless preservation is exceedingly rare, the appearance of one of these top-tier specimens at auction commands serious attention. Verified market results demonstrate that pristine, fully authenticated examples can realize prices soaring into the multiple thousands of dollars. The intense competition for these top population coins underscores a fundamental rule of advanced numismatics. The date on the coin tells you what it is, but the condition of the coin dictates what it is worth. A single microscopic scratch on Lincoln's cheek, visible only under magnification, can reduce the value of the coin by 50% or more, highlighting the brutal, exactingly strict standards of modern professional grading. Beyond pristine condition, the 1951 D-Wheat penny is legendary among variety specialists for one specific and highly coveted type of error: the repunched mint mark, commonly abbreviated as RPM. In the 1950s, the mint marks were not incorporated into the master hub design. Instead, they were punched into individual working, dies by hand using a hardened steel punch and a mallet. This manual process was inherently prone to human error. If the mint employee did not strike the punch perfectly straight, or if the first strike was too weak and required a second blow that did not perfectly align with the first, a repunched mint mark was created. The 1951 D-Wheat penny boasts several well-documented and heavily pursued RPM varieties, where collectors can clearly see the outline of a secondary D protruding from the north, south, east, or west of the primary mint mark. Identifying a genuine repunched mint mark requires careful study under a numismatic loupe or digital microscope. Novice collectors must be exceptionally cautious not to confuse a true RPM with machine doubling, which can create a flat, shelf-like appearance around the mint mark caused by a loose die bouncing during the strike. A genuine repunched mint mark shows distinct raised secondary serifs and curves that duplicate the shape of the punch. When an authenticated, dramatic repunched mint mark is discovered on a high-grade, uncirculated coin, the value skyrockets, combining the intense appeal of a manufacturing rarity with the stunning visual beauty of a preserved copper artifact. Ultimately, the study of the 1941, 1940, 1948, and 1951 D wheat pennies reveals the profound depth of modern coin collecting. It demonstrates that numismatics is not merely about accumulating old metal, but rather about engaging in a meticulous investigation of history, metallurgy, manufacturing processes, and preservation. Every surviving example that has avoided cleaning, artificial polishing, and the harsh realities of circulation serves as a time capsule, preserving a specific moment in the relentless march of the American 20th century. For those fortunate enough to uncover a high-grade specimen or a documented mint error, the responsibility of stewardship begins. Proper storage in archival quality, inert plastic holders, housed in a stable, climate-controlled environment, ensures that these extraordinary copper artifacts will remain brilliant and undamaged for the next generation of collectors to discover, study, and admire.